what have you seen, or what did you see in that video of the protester?
Sure. Well, it was first on social media. I saw a bunch of postings. I saw some various videos showing different angles from different people. As the day progressed, some of the news outlets started putting information out, stories and analysis. And one in particular, and I don't know if I'm doing something wrong by mentioning this news outlet, the Wall Street Journal, which I found in the past, even though I don't always agree with everything they put out, I found them to be accurate and very resourceful in how they check out their stories that they put out. So I have a lot of respect for what they put out. And when I saw that their analysis, and I saw a slow motion video, which appeared to show that the victim was unarmed barely a second before he was shot.
And what's kind of your, as a former officer, what's kind of your instinct when you see that, initial thoughts, or when you see that analysis?
Sure. Well, first off, let me say that I was a state certified firearms instructor. I was a state certified defense and arrest tactics instructor. I was trained by the state and certified by them. I taught at and instructed at the Green Bay Police Department and also at the technical college here in town for a number of years, recruit classes, in-service classes. And I'm always kind of hesitant to make any comments about use of force when it's just one video or two. You don't have all the angles. It's like trying to say, was the football inbounds or out of bounds? And it all depends upon the angle you're at. So I've withheld making public judgment on many of the things I see going on. But in this case, when the head of DHS, the Border Patrol, and the FBI all said this gentleman was wrong, he was an assassin, they used a lot of other terms to describe him, I thought, I can't hold back anymore. And so based on the information I saw, I felt I needed to say something publicly about it. And my analysis is, even though it was chaotic, and obviously a lot of stress involved on both sides, that, we always taught the officers you need three things to be able to use deadly force. It's a weapon, it's intent to use it, and it's the ability to use it. So, I mean, this gentleman went there with a gun, and Second Amendment, he was certified by the state to carry. So I didn't see an issue with that personally. I don't know if that was the wisest decision to make going into a situation like that with a weapon, but I mean, that's his decision. Next, he has to have intent. And because I don't have any of the audio from there, I don't know if he said anything indicating intent. But looking at his actions, it didn't look like it. It looked like he was trying to help some of the civilians that were having a confrontation with the police. And I'm not going to get into the rights and wrongs of that. So he has to have a delivery system. He has to be able to actually hold the weapon and use it. You can't shoot him just because it's in his holster. Okay. Otherwise, there'd be a lot of people would get shot, or people that even go out with open carry, holding the guns in their hands. I mean, so there's a lot that wasn't there. And so what I looked for was, he had the weapon. I don't know if he had the intent. I didn't see anything that looked like intent. And when that officer took his weapon away, he no longer had a delivery system. He no longer had a weapon. So the use of deadly force there, to me, was unwarranted.
Did it look like he was resisting or assaulting officers? That kind of sounds like that's what DHS has been saying. Is that something you saw as well, or?
Well, I always told people when we were on calls and we had crowd control situations or even large disturbances, it's always better to be a good witness than to try and interject yourself into something that you don't think is right and end up getting yourself injured, someone else injured, going to jail. I mean, all these other things. Granted, I can understand it's hard to sit and watch some of what goes on. But it looked like to me at first he was just trying to help or protect the civilians. There was one in particular, and help them up in that. I can't say so whether I actually saw him put hands on the officer, maybe to push him away or block him. But, again, as soon as you start doing something like that, you're crossing a line. And even, you can justify it that the officer is overreacting or he's using excessive force. Again, you're starting to put yourself in a situation that's not going to go well. The other officers coming to help him don't know anything other than what they saw. And if all they saw was this officer struggling with the victim, then what they're going to do is they're going to help him, the officer, take this person into custody if that's what he wants to do. And that's what they did. They tried to decentralize him down to the ground and gain control of his arms and legs. So one, he couldn't hurt them and he couldn't hurt himself. It was somewhere in that melee that it looks like one of the officers, I don't know if, again, we don't have audio, the Petrie C, I think I mispronounced his name, but if the victim said he had a weapon, just to let him know, or someone saw the weapon, but it looks like one of the agents disarmed him during that struggle. And shortly after that, the shots were fired.
Does it matter if he says he has a weapon, or if they see the weapon in the holster? Does that matter at all, or?
It should concern the officers. I mean, you can't ignore it. I mean, we would do traffic stops after concealed carry became the law in Wisconsin, and we would have individuals who would tell us, "Look, I'm a certified to carry a gun, and I have a gun on me, or I have a gun in my car, and it's there, and I want you to be aware of it." A lot of officers, okay, thanks for telling me. Just obviously don't make a move towards that weapon in any way, and that kind of thing. And then you go about your business. I mean, when I started, there was no such thing as people being able to openly or conceal a weapon on their persons. And so it's been a change for the older officers to get used to that dynamic. But people have that right to do it, and it has to be respected. Could you just give me your question again?
If he wasn't if he wasn't brandishing it, essentially, does it matter if he said he had one or if they saw it? If that makes a difference?
Right. It doesn't matter in as much as breaking the law or anything. But I think if he told him he had it, he's just trying to make him aware of it. So there's no overreaction if it is found at some point.
As an officer, what do you think? How do you think this situation should have been handled? Do you think it was handled improperly by the officers? Do you think it should have been done a different way? Or,
well, I mean, if they felt they had the right to arrest them, if they had enough probable cause to make the arrest, then they have to make the arrest, and that's what they were doing. If they felt that in the middle of that struggle that they should disarm them, that's what they did. I have no problem with that. What I would have to ask the officers that fired the shot is, what did you see? What did you hear that made you think you had to use deadly force? You have to justify it. And, sometimes you have sympathetic muscle reactions. When one officer fires, other officers fire. They're not really sure why, but one fired and they respond and the like. I mean, that's been a struggle that police department has had for a long time, and they've done extensive training, I know, at our department and other departments at the tech college to get officers to role play in simulated confrontations so that they can get used to making these split-second decisions. And that's what this is. It's split-second decisions. And they have to live with it afterwards. And so mistakes can happen. They can be made. There can be assumptions or things that, based on the whole dynamics, they feel there's a threat and there's a need to use deadly force.
Do you think that just from what you've seen and the analysis you've watched, and you mentioned you've watched some slow motion as well, was this justified at all or no?
My opinion is no. But again, that's going to be for people way above my pay grade to be making those decisions and standing by them. It's a little disturbing. I mean, Green Bay and most of the other departments, I know Appleton and that, they all have policies that when they have an officer-involved shooting, they allow another department to take over the investigation. That doesn't seem to be happening here in Minnesota. I mean, they're running their own investigation. And, as far as transparency in that, it makes one wonder. And I know that, there's a conference, and it's political. Unfortunately, this turns into politics. I mean, it should just be right and wrong. What happened? Let's just do the right thing. But there's this struggle between the Minnesota state government and the local agencies, which is preventing them from investigating it. And to me, I would think they'd be the ones to do the investigation, or at least another federal agency. should be doing the investigation. But again, it's the times we live in right now.
Would you say there's would have been a better way to de-escalate this situation by looking at it?
Well, I mean, the whole thing is, you get down to how DHS or Border Patrol and Homeland Security are running these operations. This isn't a simple thing where you've got protesters showing up at sites so you can get a crowd control team in place with different levels of security and force that they can use depending upon how the situation goes on. These are active situations where they're attempting to make arrests, and people show up and start creating these tense situations. And I've seen the way some of the protesters have treated the officers, and I can see why they take action to try and make arrests or to get them out of the area. But it's not a controlled, as you saw in the scene there. There's people all intermixed with what's going on, instead of having delineated lines where one group's on one side, one group's on the other doing their job. I mean, if in the city I used to be on the SWAT team, and we would do drug search warrants. And if we did a drug search warrant, we suddenly had the neighbors all coming out and trying to get involved with what we were doing. It creates a very unsafe environment for everybody. And luckily that never happened, but it would be, hard to try and manage a situation like that.
Anything else about this that you wanted to add that I didn't ask?
No. I just wish cooler heads would prevail. And as a society, we could learn to talk instead of getting in arguments and fights right away over things, and try and see everybody's point of view from different angles, and just try and get along better than we are.
First off, what are kind of your initial thoughts on the shooting of Alex Pretti, the protester of Minneapolis?
It's truly a sad trauma, no doubt about it. The loss of the young lady prior to that, and now this local gentleman, it shouldn't have to happen. The problem is law enforcement is trying to do their legal duty, and it appears to me that people are getting in their way.
And is that what you saw when you saw this video of the encounter?
Yes, to the best I can tell. I mean, the video doesn't tell us a lot. You have to be honest when you look at that. It doesn't tell us a lot other than this man unfortunately got shot. Resisting and obstructing is unlawful, and that's the claim now, is my understanding. And there had to be something that caught law enforcement's attention. This young man, if you're law-abiding, law enforcement doesn't have a lot of time to be picking on people. And I don't believe that anyone in law enforcement ever goes out looking to do their job that way, little less take someone's life in the course of duty. It's concerning to me that why is this just happening in Minnesota? ICE is all over the country. And I think the emotion has gotten so high for some people that they're not acting as rationally as they would if it wasn't for that emotion.
Do you believe when you watched that Alex Pretti was resisting and assaulting the officers or obstructing, I think is kind of what DHS is saying, what they had seen?
It appears to me from the beginning of the video, but there's such a short context between the beginning of that video and the poor man being shot that it's hard to state fact of what caused officers to address that man. I guess is the best as I can say it. There's the responsibility for the use of force is simple. It's imminent threat of great bodily harm or death, and it's got to be the officer's perception, nobody else's, The officer that's there at the moment's perception, and what it's up for the courts to decide now is if that's what they're saying his perception was that objectively reasonable? That's it. He doesn't have to be right. He just has to have a perception that he was an imminent threat of great bodily harm or death, any of those officers there, and he was unable to escape it at the moment, and that has to be objectively reasonable. Another person, and this is always the best way I heard it said, and the way I'd use it in training over the years, another person, another reasonable person in the same circumstance would feel the same way.
Do you think that the weapon that he had on him made a difference in what the result was?
Well, my understanding is he had a concealed carry permit. So he has every legal right and authority to be carrying concealed in the state of Minnesota. And I think that's pretty common knowledge. There was an infraction. My understanding is that he didn't have any ID or his carry permit on him, which is a law, but that in itself won't draw law enforcement's attention. So the gun thing, there's got to be more to it there than the fact that he wasn't carrying ID or his concealed carry permit. I guess some people want to compare it to, and I forget the young man's name, carrying the rifle down the street in the riots back in the 20s.
Oh, Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah, he doesn't need a permit to do open carry. It's a different law. And law enforcement can see from a distance that he's armed where you can't with someone that's in concealed carry, right? So to compare those two is really apples and oranges.
So from what we're hearing, the gun was in a holster. It looks like it wasn't taken out. I guess I'm not totally 100% sure. We've only seen so many videos, but does that what should the officer's response be when they see, if they see somebody has a weapon? Do you think that this use of action was justified?
I can't make that statement from what I've seen of the videos. I mean, the videos are brief. The videos are packed full of people. I know I'm seeing freeze frames of videos that some people are saying it's a gun in the victim's hand. I can't tell that it's a gun. So to make that comment, I just can't do that. What the law requires in that circumstance is for that gentleman, the sadly deceased, to follow the directives of the officer. That's not the time for debate. And this result is exactly why the law doesn't allow debate at that time. Follow the directions of the officer. If you felt you were treated unlawfully or improperly, that's addressed after the fact. And this is why the law is that way. And what's being said is that gentleman did not follow that law.
What, as an officer in that situation, what should, if you think anything, have been done differently?
Wow. Monday morning quarterbacking, when you've got so much going on around you like that, I just won't go there on those gentlemen. I don't know enough about it. And I've been in, it's not, I'm looking for the right words. It's beyond chaotic when there's that much emotion and that much happening at once, and it's really hard to describe what's going on in someone's mind other than, I really don't want to hurt anybody, but I do want to go home at the end of the shift. And I guess that's the bottom line. But for me to judge the officer's efforts or the officer's actions at this time, after looking at the very narrow video of this and difficulty seeing exactly what's going on, I just couldn't comment.
Mm-hmm. And just to be clear, you're not going to go either way on whether or not the shooting was justified?
I don't have the information to make that statement. I support ICE's efforts. It looks to me, by what I can see from that video, that the deceased handled that unlawfully, and that's what brought about their end results.
Perfect. Is there anything else about this that that you wanted to go over or add that I didn't ask?
I think, like I said in the beginning, this is just happening in Minnesota. Why is that? And I think what we need to do is take a look at the emotions involved here and stop fueling the flames of those emotions in all ways as we can, especially from our leadership. We need to stop fueling those flames. And I support the Constitution. I was sworn for 35 years to support and defend the Constitution, both the United States Constitution and that of the state of Wisconsin. And I support it as it's written. And it says peaceably assemble. A lot of what's going on in Minneapolis isn't peaceable whatsoever. I mean, throwing rocks, throwing stones, even the disorderly part of impeding, obstructing, the screaming, the name calling. Once the emotional part of the brain, and this is out of my league, but this is what I learned years ago, right? As part of use of force training. Once the emotional part of the brain takes over, the reasoning part of the brain doesn't work. It can't.